Hello and welcome to Guy Logic. My name is Temco and today we are taking a look at a game called Polaris Sector. It is being developed by SoftWarWare and published by Slitherine Ltd. for SoftWareware is a Russian developer, and with the help of the English or UK software house Slitherine, they have published the game on Steam and translated to English as well as Spanish apparently. So that is pretty cool. What is the game? It's a 4X. It's a top-down 2D-esque 4X, which stands for Explore, Expand, Exploit, and Exterminate. And we're gonna go in all four in just a bit. First, let's talk a little bit about the options menu, the settings, and a variety of things like that in regards to the game. It's a sci-fi game, as most 4Xs are. And the options menu finds itself outside of the game in a separate launcher. I do not approve of this in almost all cases, and such is the situation here as well. More egregiously, that very same options menu can also be found in-game, but not in the menu. So you have to load up a game, go to settings there, then you can change your options and settings, which is aggravating to say the very least. The game has a very extensive tutorial that explains, well, a lot about the game. Everything really is explained in the tutorial. It is pretty extensive. And I really do suggest you use that tutorial if you plan on starting this game, because the game has quite a few systems, and we're going to go into them in a bit. First, let's go ahead and go into new game. I'll show you how the game plays, and I'll dive into options in a little bit to show you what you can tweak. Because there's quite a bit of tweaking, just not graphically, which is a shame. When you start this game, as I said, it's a sci-fi game, you have to select a location, a type of galaxy, and a number of other things you have to configure. Now you can choose from an elliptic galaxy, a elliptical galaxy with a central segment, a segmented galaxy, and each of these has a different way of spawning enemies, and the way it handles your own expansion and the ability to expand. So an elliptical galaxy is a disc-shaped galaxy with a much more dense center area, and it evens out further to the edges, and each race has more or less the same starting conditions. And then you have an elliptic galaxy with a central segment, which means the segment is more isolated. There is a very limited number of access ways into that center, and one race starts there while the other races start in the edges. It means that one race in the center is surrounded in essence by all the other races. And the same goes for segmented and rectangular and the various other types of galaxies you have. Now, let's say you take an elliptic galaxy. Then in the bottom you have a variety of settings, such as number of races. You can go all the way up to 9 and all the way down to, well, 2. I've picked 4 because that's a good way to demonstrate this. As well as the number of stars. You can go from 40 stars, which is a very limited number, all the way up to 400. And with 9 races, all the way up to 900. So you'll have the ability to have up to 100 stars per available race. And that is pretty good. So we're going to go with about this, let's go 70 stars here. Tunnels density. Tunnels is the amount of wormholes that are in the game. I'll explain wormholes in a little bit, but I'm going to lower this to 1.3. And yeah, that's really it. Other than that, you have 3D shape. 3D shape is a pretty weird one. The game is all overall 2D. There is no 3D involved. Everything is top-down 2D. But the 3D shape dictates that the way the galaxy is formed, it has depth to it. Stars are not on a plane field. They are on a 3D field, and some stars are in front of other stars. You need to rotate the galaxy a little bit. So it gives it a bit more of a realistic feeling as far as the galaxy goes. If that is confusing to you, if you're unsure what's going on and you get a little bit annoyed by all the lines, and I'll explain that in a little bit as well, then lower it. So I'm going to lower it a little bit. And shape aspect, which means that the wider or shorter it is. I'm going to just leave this somewhere like that. Other than that, you have weak AI, moderate AI, or strong AI. Hard, the strong AI is the way to play. But for the purpose of the demo, I'm going easy. This means that other races are both passive and develop slowly, and your empire has a massive boost in production. Moderate means that other races develop normally, So they'll advance and they'll follow the pathways and attack and do all the other things they need to do, but you will still have a increase in food production. And hard means nope. You do not have any bonuses, but the enemies do. So it's a bit of a difference. Other than that, you can decide how to finish up a level. Now, unlike many other 4Xs, this game is designed to be played repeatedly in a variety of settings. Most 4Xs like X3 or X2 or Freelancer in the good old days were designed that you would play a game and you would play it for hundreds of hours and you would develop your empire slowly and you would expand and you would develop your empire further and further and further and so on and so forth. You wouldn't restart the map every couple of hours to try something else. That generally isn't the way to go with 4Xs. This one though does it this way. Each map is played for a number of hours, and this can, if you have a very large map with hundreds of stars, this can end up being quite a few hours. If you have a small map with like 70 stars, which we have here, this is only going to take a couple of hours to clear out. Either lose or win. Winning, you do die victory conditions. You either have victory by domination, which means you have to control 75% of the empire. You can decide that at the end game, which is a indeterminate time in the future, an enemy will appear from somewhere far away. This is a random AI enemy. It will appear and you will have to defeat that enemy, and the person who defeats that enemy will end the game. That's really it. And then you have the last one, which is pirate attacks, and these are NPCs or unaffiliated AI that will indiscriminately attack. At least they will attack in space. I've not had them attack any ground structures yet, so that may just be something I got lucky in, but that is the case. I'm going to turn off external threat here and go on to race selection. Now, the game is home to 9 races. Each race has a few distinct traits. Outside of a very detailed world, psychology, history, and cultural aspect, which is pretty interesting to read if you're into that sort of thing, each race has a number of characteristics. You will see these below, such as fleet upkeep cost, food consumption, production speed, research speed, mining efficiency, and so on and so forth. And the varieties in these aspects are what make the differences between races. So for example, the drills have a somewhat higher fleet upkeep cost, meaning their fleets cost 10% less to upkeep, which is pretty good. But their population grows 40% faster, which is also really good. But their research speed is 15% worse. And they are terrible at espionage, so finding out new information from enemies. Also, you do not get a extra technology at the start, which means that you are very low tech, but high expansion and good for warfare. If we take, for example, the Megalins, which are your token sexy alien race, you will notice that they have a very high research speed, but a very low population growth, and they have an additional technology, the Stargate module. So there is some variety in what you can be and what you aren't. As always, humans are the middle of the roadway. They have a slightly weaker population growth, a slightly higher mining efficiency, and they are great at espionage, but they are shit at trade. So all of these, they basically decide what kind of game you're going to play. Are you going to play an aggressive game because your race is suited for that? Are you going to be expanding a lot, declaring war, pirating, plundering? Or are you going to be a trader? Are you going to use espionage and assassinations? Or are you going to expand and take over alien worlds and assimilate their populace to yours? For example, the Meligans are amazingly good at assimilating alien species to their society, whereas humans are middle of the road on that. And you will have the, where are they? Drills that are absolutely terrible at that. So we're gonna go with humans. They get an available technology, the dual TRE, which is an engine type. And you start off with, in this situation, 3 other races in the race to go forward. You can also remove some of these points if you want and distribute more points. We're not gonna do that. We're gonna go start ahead in this fashion. We start with our home planet in Aldebaran, and it's called New Earth, and it's a balanced Earth-like planet. And as you can see, there's a couple of lines going out from this planet to different areas, marked with a orange triangle. These are map zones we can explore. How do we explore? Well, in the 4X exploration, the first part of it, you do so by sending your spaceship to a different area. We thankfully start with the Scout, which is a freighter type spaceship that has a very large fuel capacity and a decent speed. The human variant is pretty slow compared to some of the other variants, but there is not that many other differences between the various Scouts. So once you, let's say, go to Archer's Head, and we can see our entire map here. So we're starting a little bit in the middle. We're going to see if we can find anything interesting. You queue this up. There we go. And it will tell me that the ship needs 7 months, 9 days, and 2,496 tons to get there out of the 30,000 I have. So that's not an issue. But it's not moving yet. That's because the game is paused. You unpause the game and you can change the time from times 1 to times 20 and everything in between. Which is pretty good. You need that. I usually have it around times 6. It says 6.4. It's because mostly it's a fraction of this slice, which is a bit weird. It could have just made it 6 or 10 or 15. I don't know why. But yeah, it's this way. So once you turn on time, it'll start moving. Time will start changing. And your ship will arrive. Once it arrives, you will get either a message or no message. And you will get a trigger here. And the game will pause again. Now you can edit this pause moment in the settings menu. I'll get into that in a second. But first we're going to see what this info message is. It says that they have found a planet on Archer's Head that seems very similar to our own home planet. Cool. Go to Archer's Head. We'll see that there is a planet. It is a oceanic planet that has quite a bit of science points to our advantage. Now, before we dive into the expansion part, we're going to stay a little bit on the exploration part for a few more minutes. First, settings. The game's option menu is abysmal. There's very little you can actually configure in the game. We've already said that on the initial step. It's outside of the game. It only allows you to set your resolution or whether or not you want to use OpenGL. Everything else is about configuring your gameplay experience. And the game does allow you quite a bit of configuration. But the problem I have with this is that none of the configuration actually matters that much in gameplay sense. It is only a matter of how much you want the game to handhold you. For example, drawing star names. You can turn that on, you can turn that off. Removes a little bit of clutter. Star names in racial icons. You can see what races, what stars are controlled by what race. Galaxy glow. Turn that off, turn that on. Doesn't really matter. So star ownership. You can turn that on, turn that off. Show political relations. Turn that on, turn it off. So these are all configuration options for all of that. And you can also change the brightness of the background. I like mine a little bit brighter, but wherever you want that. Auto pause is the next step. You can decide when the game auto pauses. You can do so in a pretty ridiculous set of extensions. You can, just looking at science, you can pause when the game has completed priority research, a new applied science, a new spacecraft type, a new planetary construction, new weapon, etc., etc., etc. For colonization, invasion, planets, fleets, politics, economics. Everything has a way for you to change the moment it pauses. Pretty good. On global, you have your music volume, which is weird because there's no other settings that impact the game in any way such as that. So, again, I'm not sure why they added this here, but they didn't add the other options, limited as they are, to the system. But I digress. That is a gripe I've spoken enough on about. Some other changes you can do is when sound is played, it displays the ships or displays an icon, whichever you prefer. I would go with ships because, you know, they just look prettier. You can either do a limited fleet info or an extensive fleet info. Again, I'm not sure why you would do limited, but the game does have an idea that pop-ups, information, etc. Some other settings that decide how you want to interact with the game. You can experiment this a little bit however you want, and then some other last settings. So yes, you do have a lot of settings you can configure, but most of them are in the way you play the game, not so much as in the way the game allows you to configure things. A good example is Civilization 5, that allows you to configure a ton of things outside of the game, from everything from the amount of additional NPC areas, enemy AI, interactions, map size, starting, time zones, gameplay options. Everything from scratch could be configured to make a very modular game experience you could play from start to finish. And the game does have a lot of similarities in the way it plays compared to Civ 5, and fewer the way it plays compared to, let's say, X3 or X2 as far as 4X experience goes. X2 and X3 are more around starting an empire and spending hundreds of hours building that empire, and Civ 5 is more about finishing a game from A to Z. And these games could take a dozen hours each, but they do have a finite end, and you can redo a new game with a new map and new settings. This game is more like that, but it is a 4X in that it tries to do that whole exploration, expansion, exploitation, and extermination aspect. So, back to exploration. I use some fuel. I have explored Archer's Head, and I have 3 other star systems I can explore. These star systems are K-class, this one's K-class as well, and this one's M-class. And each star system class has certain base characteristics that allow them to have certain worlds based on the map configuration. Now, once you explore a map zone, you can see the kind of planets that there are. Now, planets come in 3 distinct, or actually I should say 4 distinct manners. You have Earth-like planets that have a bunch of every resource. You have worlds that have some resources and are colonizable, so either frozen worlds, oceanic worlds, or, well, I don't have anyone here, or even other types of worlds. And then you have worlds that you cannot yet colonize. These can be volcanic, very hot worlds, gas giants, etc. You need special research in the research tree down below to unlock the ability to colonize these worlds. I'll get into research a little bit. Each planet has up to 6 resources. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And these resources are gravitonium, metal, plutonium, radium, organics, which is basically oil, and then the ability to grow food. Not every planet can grow food, obviously, so there is some variety there, but that's the exploitation part. Exploration part just says, this is the planet, you can or can't colonize it. Now, some star systems have access to a wormhole. You can decide to use a wormhole, and it will jump your ship randomly to a different location in the wormhole. Sometimes this can be as close as the next star system, sometimes this can be on the other side of the galaxy. Understandably, if you're playing on a very large map with 900 stars, jumping in a wormhole might get your ship stranded. In fact, it probably will. Another thing is that wormholes can sometimes suck up ships and eat them up alive and never give them back. I use the wormhole, you see how they jumped all the way over there? And if I select this star system now, you'll see a little dotted line going from this to this. I can use this with multiple ships and travel faster that way. I'm going to see if I can get back to my ships somehow. I doubt I can. I think this ship is going to be stranded permanently. I'm burning fuel very fast. But I'm exploring these various locations. Now, another thing that I will figure out sooner or later is either pirate fleets or I will come across other AI races. Pirate fleets you can fight and they will fight you. Obviously, your scout ships don't actually have anything to fight with. So you will end up... Here we go, I found an Earth-like planet. End up dying with a scout ship. So that's pretty cool. There we go, my ship just made it back just in time. So I explored quite a big chunk of the galaxy here. I know what's going on, everything from A to Z here. And if I look at my scout ship and I say, hey, Mr. Scout Ship, if I go here, what happens? Well, I'm going to use 4 years to get there, as well as 20 tons of fuel. But that means if I use 20 tons of fuel, I cannot get back to my hometown. That means that ship was stranded somewhere. Now, because we figured out that there is an Earth-like planet here, I'm going to click this planet and start planet colonization. We're here going to get to the exploration part. Each planet has a few things going for it. Each planet has a certain amount of resources. This planet has a bunch of plutonium. It has a whole ton of organics. It has some metals, some radium, and some gravitonium. A pretty good planet because it has everything. It has some research opportunities for science, but even more important that the bonuses here indicate that it is a very good planet for research as well as production, but a terrible planet to get radium or gravitonium on. So I can decide how to colonize planets based on that. If I press escape and I go to Archer's Head, and I check the frozen planet, This one has radium and metals and organics as well, but it doesn't have any extra bonuses associated with them. And the same goes for the Asiatic planet. It says the research opportunity for science is here and a ton of organics. So you can decide how you want to explore and how you want to expand that way. Once you plan colonization, you can select the type of economy. So this is one of the main issues I have with the game in general through the entire game. It does a lot of hand-holding and telling you what it feels it should do and not giving you the information for you to make a solid judgment on what you should do. For example, right here, it says you can do micromanagement or select one of these various ways to pre-build the city. It will auto-build for you. You don't have to look at it. All the things are managed. You don't have to plan ahead. You don't have to organize anything on your planet. You're just gonna build, and that's really it. You don't even have to look at it. And while that might be interesting if you have 200 planets and you don't really have time to keep expanding and keep building, it sort of defeats the purpose of a 4X when the main part of a 4X, the second part, the expansion, is more just pressing a button, planning colonization, than furthermore ignoring the damn planet. So micromanagement is the only way I feel you should play. Colonization gets planned, and micromanagement basically says that the planet will not do anything unless you explicitly tell it to. Good, good, good. Now what this means is that on my home planet, I'm going to start building a ship, a colonizer. And in the meantime, I'm going to send this vessel over to this planet, see if we can find anything else. So right now, I'm waiting on my ship to build, which is going to still take a couple of years, while I am still exploring. It also says I should take a closer look. Now, this is the other thing you can do with exploration, is figure out these anomalies. I have found a gravity anomaly. And if I press my scout vessel and press this button called Explore, it will tell me that there is a legend of a race called Priori, blah, blah, blah. And I found an object. This is one of 4 ancient prion vessels, things, icons, items. I have to find 3 more somewhere in the galaxy. And it may be... Actually, it probably is that some other race has picked these up and taken them for their own. But in the meantime, you do have access to that. We're going to explore a bit further ahead. This one's not going to go anywhere, and we can't use it yet. There we go. In the meantime, our ship's still building. I can just leave this going. I'm going to put this on 20 real fast to get the ship built. There we go, done. And the ship is not built. I put it on 6.4. And see, the colonization is planned. And we can keep going. There we go. Our colonization freighter is heading off to colonize this planet. In the meantime, we are exploring these various positions. Let's head back to town because we are running low on fuel. There we go. We have colonized a planet. And now on this planet, we can start building things on it. One of the first things we're going to have to build is, of course, some farming structures to feed our people. We're going to build 5 farming structures. Each of them takes 4 years to build. And then we're going to start some production. We're going to build 2 production facilities. Production increases the amount of production points. I am at 0.5 now. But adding 2 production facilities, which I also have a 3.4% bonus on, will mean that further production is a lot faster. So we're going to leave this to build. This is going to take 52 years to complete. So that will take a while. And while we are building this, we can also look at the bottom left, and that will tell us how many building slots we have available. For example, I still have 71 farm slots available, but 24 are blocked. Why are 24 blocked? That's a good question. 24 are blocked because I already indicated I want to build factories. And these factories indicate that they're going to use up a bunch of resource locations on the planet, which will prevent other things from being built. If I build a lot of research, that will block other things from getting built. Same goes for mining resources. So you do have to make some decision based on what you're building here, but they're pretty shallow and you do not have a lot of control in turning on or off facilities. You do not have control in the amount of resources being put into facilities, nor do you have a ton of control of production capabilities if you want to lower or increase production. Planet-wise. And this is a major point because all resources are managed on the entire scale of your empire. So what I have right now, it's a pretty good indication, is, let me go to settings, global, map, social ownership. What I have right now is 2 planets I control. This is my galaxy. This is my empire. And if I build another one here or here, it will all overlap. All of these solar systems and all of these planets I have a bunch of resources they generate together. And currently that's mostly this planet building a bunch of resources. And you can see these on the left. I have a surplus, that is the amount I have available in current storage. And I have the current production. If this is in the gray and not the red, I'm good to go because I'm producing more than I'm using. But this is not per planet. This is globally on your own empire. And something I don't like in this game is that it makes things very simplified for resource use. Yes, you might say, yes, now I don't have to spend hours setting up trade routes and trade agreements with other empires and managing resource production and managing resource consumption and making sure that all planets have enough food, etc., etc. But honestly, I feel that is a major integral part of building a 4X simulation. Whereas right now, what I'm building is a bunch of resource production facilities where my resources are one big pile and I use them everywhere. So even areas where I don't ever build anything related to ship construction outside of a shipbuilding facility for spaceships, I can still use all the shipbuilding materials throughout my empire, even though that planet may not have any facilities to generate those resources or even have trade routes to get those resources to that planet. It may be completely isolated on a completely different side of the galaxy, but simply because it is part of my empire, I can build a humongous army there out of you without any repercussions. And that is a really weird thing I do not like at all about this very simplified resource and resource generation system. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't any things to manage. There's actually quite a few things to manage. One of the main things you can manage when you consider a variety of things here. Let me actually speed up time here so I can explore a bit more and see if I can't find another race. There we go. Let's go to this race. There. One of the things you can manage is diplomacy with other races. Now, this is also part of the expansion and exploitation aspect of a 4X game. I'm gonna see if I can exchange embassies with them. Yes, we can. There we go. That is pretty good. And we're gonna see if we can follow them to their home world to see what is going on. Can we find them? That's a good question, isn't it? Well, they don't want military cooperation, but I found their home planet. Now I can go to diplomacy here in the bottom, select the Ungans, and select audience, block politics, offer economic cooperation. Cool, I now have an economic treaty, which means I can start trading with them. I can talk some more politics, open borders research vessels, they don't need to. I can go with military attaché and declare war. So there is definitely some politics involved here. The problem with this screen, again, is it's very simplified. And this is a recurring theme in this game. It doesn't have enough depth to it. This screen is very basic. I see where my bit of empire is, and I see where their chunk of the empire is. But I don't really see much else. I don't have extrapolation of information on this screen. I only see very limited information regarding my economic status with the AI. I don't really have a lot of information until I open this, and then I can see, oh, they don't really want to do science with me. I don't know that until I keep asking him about that. Let's see, I'm giving him 1 ton of plutonium. This is really it. And that is a damn shame, because there was a lot they could do with this. And there really isn't a lot you can do outside of some basic interaction with AI opponents. Now, this is mostly where the exploration and exploitation really ends. You can build settlements, and I've built this here, and I'm building this farm, and it's generating food, and it's generating populants for it. The different buildings have some building requirements, but it's all pretty simple. Once you get to the expansion part and you start building empire, start building settlement after settlement, and you start colonizing Asian after colonization, you get to the exploitation part, which is generating these resources, and then you get to the extermination part, which is warfare. I don't have an army here, so I can't really actually fight anything yet. But what I can show you is a different map I have, which is a bit further ahead, and show you how warfare looks like more or less, because there are some issues with warfare as well. Before we do that, I want to touch on two more things. I want to touch on economics and research. Economics, again, is very simplified. I have my 2 planets here, and I have my planned colonization, but I can't zoom in. I do not know my production on these planets outside of a very global overview. For example, here it doesn't tell me New Earth is building farms right now. It doesn't tell me this New Earth is building a colonization ship right now. It only tells me Freedom, the second planet, is building a farm. I'm not sure what's queued up. I'm not sure how long this will take for everything else to build up. I'm not sure if there's any bonuses that will trigger. I'm not sure if there's any shortages I'm going to experience. I don't really know, and I have no way to do so from this screen. I have to go to the planet in the other galaxy screen, extrapolate that information, somehow remember it, get back to a different planet, and figure out what I can do to manage that. Really simplified, missing a ton of information. As I said earlier, you can't really directly influence your planet's direct production queue or capacity. You can do a little bit of that by saying my people will work an additional 100% of hours or 80% of hours, and that will increase production. That will also obviously make these people mad and not willing to work with you and hate you and breed unrest, where you will need to use police and other ground forces, which you can build, much like spaceships, to combat that, which is pretty interesting. But again, this is global across your entire empire and doesn't really do much because your police, etc., are all local on a planet. So you're having global policies which have a local impact, and that really doesn't match, because before you can start using this to your advantage, you first need to build a lot of local peacekeeping troops on all planets you control for no reason, just so you can add additional work hours to a specific resource you might want. Again, no control, you can only add more or less. Very simplified and very lacking overall in terms of depth of economy and trade and diplomacy. These two things I feel are the weakest parts of the game in general. What is very cool though is research. Research is one of two things I really enjoy about this game outside of the expansion and exploration. Research is amazingly well thought out in that it has fundamental science, which are the base types of science you can expand, and then it has applied sciences, which give you actual results in terms of what technologies you have available. So, if I add this to 100%, I will not be researching any of these objects, but I will only be researching, for example, xenobiology. And now you can see I'm adding 1.12 resource assigned to biology out of 4.48. If I add this to 100, I will not be researching any of the other things. So, I would never get force fields because I do not have the required resources available because I'm not using them. Resetting this though is going to give me xenobiology in about 19 years. If I wanted xenobiology faster, I could add more resources to biology, and I'll get it in 6 years. So there's a lot of mix and matching here to figure out what type of research you will get sooner or later and what you want to focus on. Do you want to focus on a strong army? Do you want to focus on a strong expansion, combat mechanics, technology to populate worlds, technology to expand to different worlds, or even technology you can trade with other races to get information on them? Pretty important. Now, if you're really desperate to get a certain technology, like that is xenobiology, you can set that as a priority. What this does is redirect nearly all resources in getting xenobiology. As you can see, my fundamental science has jumped to 100%, and everything has gone to biology, fully biology, and this means I will get this in 2 years by gathering 27 biology points. Now, an important distinction to make here is, if I want, for example, to get a resonance tank, and I set this as a priority, it will take me 10 years to complete. Pretty good. But because it takes 97 points in automation and enhanced tungsten armor liability takes 65 points, by the time I get gravity resonance tank as a research, I will also have unlocked enhanced tungsten armor. So it's not a path that you select a certain research and you only focus on that research. No. You focus on the applied science automation, and all research related to that will get closer and closer to completion. And if a specific research requires multiple disciplines such as automation, complex design, thermomolecular synthesis, etc., you might get a variety of different research you have to focus on to get a specific technology. This is a very cool system that allows you to mix and match what kind of technology you want. I really like this. Now, what can you use technology for? As I said earlier, you have to unlock certain technology to be able to colonize certain planets. For example, I have a volcanic planet here I cannot colonize until I get the seismo-resistant atmospheric dome technology. And then I can start colonizing this type of planet as well. Other than that, you have shipbuilding. You do so by building a vessel. I can go here and say build new ship. And I can select one of these very many ships available to me. But if I do not like these ships, I can build my own. Now initially, I do so by creating a new design. Now initially, you do not have a lot of extra technology. And you have to deal with what you have. But unlocking new technology such as tungsten armor, such as advanced gravity resonance wells, such as advanced weaponry, hardpoints, etc., etc., you can create bigger, better ships. Even the same type of ship, like a scout ship, can be upgraded objectively better. And then you can select that scout ship in your menu and say, I'm going to upgrade it to this new version of the same chassis. You have 4 chassis. You have fighters, which are small ships you can deploy from bigger ships. Corvettes, which are combat vessels with limited capacity. They have a limited number of hardpoints. Satellites, which cannot have engines, so they're stationary. And freighters, which have a lot of space, but are very lightly armored, so you cannot upgrade their armor. So you have basically combat, scouting, or colonization, or other non-combat related things, and short-range fighters, which you deploy from corvettes or freighters. And then you have satellites, obviously. Now, once you build a new prototype, and let's say I build a new corvette prototype, I select prototype, I call it the England 1, okay, I can start adding items to it. I can add hardpoints to it, and let's say I want to get ion guns, which I will load up here and here. And then I want to get a laser, which I'll upload here. And I'll add 2 plasma missile turrets, and then 2 more laser turrets. A pretty heavy beastie ship. Actually, I'll add 3 laser turrets. Pretty beastie, right? That's going to take quite a bit of power to even out. It still needs drives, and it still needs a couple of other things. So we go to the second part, engines. And you might say, well, where are you going to put engines? Well, thankfully, this ship has 2 levels. And we have dual TRE engines. We can add 2 of those. There we go. And that is that. And thankfully, this ship also allows us to add 2 more hardpoints here and here for plasma missiles. It also allows us to add a bunch of lasers to here and here. And we're just going to add some ion guns as well here and here. Again, I'm very low on power at this point. So we're going to go to generators and see how many generators we can fit on this ship. There's 2, 3, 4. Uh-oh, I do not actually have the power requirements to build this many. That is a problem. It means I need to remove some things from my ship if I want it able to fly at all. So let's remove 1 engine. Let's move 2 engines. Let's go back to the engines and see if we can do it with 2 of these. There we go. It's a lot slower, but it does do the job. Okay, let's see. Armor-wise, I can either take titanium armor, which makes me a ship a little bit faster, but only allows me 1200 hull. Or I can take tungsten armor, which is 1400 hull, a bit more, but slower speed. I do not have any shield research, so I cannot unlock that. And once I go to special, I can add things like fuel tanks, which I need to travel between different star systems. Now, this ship is pretty useless as far as ships go, because I can only travel 2000 distance between stars, and most of my planets are way further than that, meaning this ship will never be able to travel from planet to planet. I need more power. That means I probably need to start removing some guns from here and start thinking on how I can add more power to the ship to maximize the efficiency. Later on, I will have technology to do that. And you have munition supplies and hangars for fighters you can add, scanners, colonizations, bomb bays, refueling modules, and you unlock a bunch more. So that is ship design. You even have the ability to test weapon ranges. So I have a 360 weapon arc, I can shoot everywhere in a pretty big radius. Pretty good. I'm going to delete this one, so because this is useless, etc. And that's how you design ships. Each race has their own archetypes, and I'm going to show you that in a second. Okay, so I'm going to show you combat. I'm going to switch to load game and load my own older game. Now, this is a different game on a much bigger galaxy. I've been playing this game for a couple of hours, and I'm a bit further ahead. I have a bunch of army, and I'm playing the Magellan race, which allows me quite a few things. I have production here. I have a couple of fleets going on here. I have a ton of stuff I can do. So let's get some combat going. Let me first combine these two fleets together, and then send them off to this planet, which we can get some warfare going on, I think. Speed ahead, and we're going to get some warfare on. There we go. End conversation. So they have a fleet here. We're just gonna attack this fleet. Start a war. Yes. Some warfare going on. There we go. And that's it. Yes, most of the warfare in this game is automated. You defeat it, it flees. That is really it. And it runs away. Now, there's a couple of things you can do here, which will allow you to decide outcomes of battles. Sometimes you get a choice to do a battle manually. When the game feels that there is some slight chance you might lose, it will leave you to the choice. And you will get a window saying, well, are you sure you want to manually control this battle? You may have 1 or 2% chance to lose, or you may have 50 or 90% chance to lose. You can manually control the battle. I'm kind of sad I can't actually show you that right now, because that would have been interesting to see. But such is the case. Actually, let me see if I can do that here on this here level. Speed. There you go. Come on. There. I can do okay and start combat this way. You start combat and you enter the battle here. Your ships spawn in a random location, and the enemy ships also spawn in a specific location. And you can send out your ships to start moving forward. As you can see, I have a very large chance to win this, and I can press auto resolve. I can also check my fire arcs to see what kind of stuff my ships are up to. There you go. So I can see what kind of stuff my ships are up to. There you go. Unpause this and go to ×4. Oh, and the enemy flees away. A lot of your combat is going to be this, which is a damn shame. You don't have any way to control this. Sometimes it'll be automated, sometimes the enemies are just going to run away. Sometimes you will try to do it manually and they will still run away. Combat, not the game's strongest suit. It is very slow. The ships don't feel great, and though there is definitely some tactical ideas behind it, in the way you have to position ships, the way you have to use ships, the way that you combine short-range fighters with deployable missiles, with ion cannons, with defenses, with offenses, and the way it is portrayed in the tutorial is pretty amazing. Problem is that the game's actual experience when you're playing it is nothing like that. Combat is very annoying. Enemies run away and keep flying from system to system, preventing you from actually chasing them down. I think I've fought this very specific corvette here at least 15 or 20 times. These two corvettes, I think I've chased them at the minimum 9 times now. And that's really annoying because there's no reason for that to be the case. I can again do this, battle the Ein, select this battle, select my ships, move forward. ×10 zoom, and they run away again. Combat over. Again, no shots fired. And these guys will run away again. And they're gonna run up and contest my planet. The problem is this planet doesn't have a planetary defense. So I need to build a new ship, which would be the Beltagus, which would take me 109 years to build, and I have to invest a lot of time to do that. just so these damn little corvettes, which I can annihilate completely, and I just can't do anything about it because I can't capture them, they can fly away. This is very frustrating to say the very least. Okay. So that is combat. You could see me attack 2 races here, and I now have declared war on both of them. If you check diplomacy, you'll notice I have war with both of them. And again, I already explained diplomacy in its limited fashion and the way it goes. How do I stop being at war? It's actually very simple. You go to diplomacy, you tell your enemy, military attaché, there you go. War over. Yes, it is that simple. You do not have to pay any reparations, and I've never had an AI say, "Oh no, we don't want to stop this war. We're just gonna keep going." Maybe it's more normal in easy mode where it happens. I haven't played hard mode, so maybe that will be different, but I honestly do not know. So that brings us to the end. What do I think of Polaris Sector? As I said, through the course of this game's review, I find it exceedingly simplified. Lots of automation, a lot of pre-deciding for you what you should and shouldn't do. A lot of coaching and, hey, you should do this, hey, you should do that. And a lot of hand-holding in terms of what buildings are available, what buildings you should build, what trade you should do, what management you should do, what abilities you should research, how you should do it. A lot of hand-holding, and it's all just a tad too simple for my own taste in a 4X title. Things like the economy being global, while you could have isolated planets, it just doesn't feel right. And that is also the main criticism I've had for this game. It's just way too simple. The combat is too simple, the economy is too simple, the trading is too simple, and the way diplomacy works is pretty simple. Does that mean it is a bad game? No. If you accept that these simplified aspects don't make it a worse game, just a simpler game, and you adjust your ideas behind that, you have a very enjoyable title here. The exploration, finding hidden gems in some obscure solar systems, building ships that can go further and further and not get stranded, building refueling stations, expanding your empire using strategic star systems to control space, using diplomacy to get enemies to hate each other and races to fight amongst each other. All pretty good, but it's all very simple. So you don't have to spend a lot of time thinking and planning ahead. You don't have to spend a lot of hours managing things. It is not like Anno, where you spend like Anno 1602 or 1503, the older titles, where you spend several hours configuring trade routes to get your optimal resource production moving here and there. None of that. But what it has is pretty much fun. I do hope they fix the issues with combat being more of a game and cat and mouse, but overall the experience I have is pretty fun. Not perfect, not amazing, but pretty fun. So I don't know what the price point will be for the title. The developers have not announced one as of yet, and I've not been able to find one anywhere online. Everything from $15 to $40. And while the game has a bunch of content and a ton of replayability, most of it is going to be more or less samey based on the way you prefer to play. And while there are some variety in races, some being warlike or more suited to war, and others being more suited to high-tech research, that will affect your gameplay some, but not a ton, because you can still force that by just pumping out a ton more resources into a certain thing. So my conclusions: simple, but fun. Not great, not the next great Messiah of 4X's, but not a bad title overall. So, thank you for watching. If you're interested in Polaris Sector, you can check it out on Steam. And if you like this video, press that like button below. If you didn't like this review, there's a dislike button for exactly that reason. And if you want to see more content like this, other critical content, beta impressions, and commentaries on the gaming industry, I suggest you press that subscribe button down below and we will deliver. And until then, I wish you a good day, and until next time, right here on Guy Logic.